everyone, Eric Grenier here, and welcome to the 74th episode of the Writ podcast. And this is also the second annual over-under competition with my good friend Philippe J. Fournier of 338canada.com. Bonjour, Philippe. How are you doing? It's the end of the year. I assume you're looking forward to it.
Good morning, Eric. It's great to see you again. Yes, the end of the semester has been a very busy year, and vacation is just around the corner, so we're gonna take it.
Yeah. And, it turned out to be a pretty busy year. 2 provincial elections last year. The year before, there was a federal election. So we've had a lot to discuss over the last little while, so it's been fun to do that. And what we did last year, it was an over-under competition, which you found out was a competition when you signed on at first. But I think that what we have to do first, before we talk about what we're going to do for the rest of this podcast, we do have to go over what happened in our guesses in 2022. Do you have any idea which one of us won?
I don't, to be honest, Eric. I seem to only remember the ones that I got wrong. I remember a handful of them, and I got them all wrong. So I'm guessing that you did, but maybe it's selective memory. So,
yeah. Okay, well, let's go through it. Okay, so what we did, we had to set lines, and then we had to choose whether we thought the results would be over or under the lines. So we had started with the Ontario election, and we had said one of the first lines was for the PCs to get 35.4% of the vote. We both chose the over, which was correct. It was 40.8% for the PCs. One of the other ones we did was whether the Liberals would form the official opposition. Now, you said that they would. I think you might have just been taking the opposite from me, because I said they wouldn't. And with 8 seats, of course, they did not form the official opposition.
Not even close.
Yeah. So this one actually I thought was pretty interesting. The lines I'd put was 2.5 parties with more than 25% of the vote.
Oh,
you chose the under.
Yeah.
I chose the over. The Liberals and the NDP both ended up with 24% of the vote, so they were under.
It's funny because I thought it would be at least 2 parties would get 25%, but no, they tied at 24%-ish. So, yeah.
Not an impressive showing. Nope. So we also had 1.5 green seats, which turned out to be a pretty good line, because if you remember, Parry Sound Muskoka was really close. We both were under. That's what happened. They just won 1 seat. So that was Ontario. Then we moved to Quebec. So Quebec was, of course, we chatted every week during that campaign, so that was a lot of fun. So one of the lines we chose was 5.5 PQ seats. Do you remember what you chose?
Oh, I think I took the over. What a mistake that was. That was a mistake.
Yeah, I chose the under, and of course they won 3 seats.
Three, yeah. And they were supposed to win 2, but that's a long story. But yeah.
We sticking with the PQ, we did 1.5 PQ seats south and west of Quebec City. We both chose the under there, but we didn't identify the correct seat. I think we were thinking that they'd win either Joliette or Marie-Victorin, and they won Camille Lorrain, which was Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's seat.
No point for style.
No. Sticking to Montreal, we said 4.5 CAQ seats on the island of Montreal. I watched this recently because I needed to find out who won. And you were a very, very enthusiastic over. Yep. You said, no chance. Of course, they're going to get more than that.
And I think I even made you increase your line to say
we
that
had it at 3.5.
And last year it made sense, but when the last numbers that we had in the campaign, I must say I had the right number in the campaign, 2 seats for the CAQ, but it seemed that they would win more. And you took the under, and you were right.
Yeah, they only won 2 seats. Okay, and then we had 93.5 CAQ seats overall. I chose the under, and you chose the over, but you had said it was mostly just to be a little different. They won 90 seats, which, the line is actually pretty good.
Yeah, good line.
Yeah, another good line, 19.5 Liberal seats.
Oh.
Yeah.
We took the over.
Remember what you did?
You took the over on this, both.
We both took the over.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they won 21 seats, so that was pretty good. Now this one, again, I'm the Quebec Solidaire whisperer, I think. We had 8.5 Quebec Solidaire seats. You chose the under. I chose the over. Yeah, wow. 11 seats for Quebec Solidaire. And then we had 4.5% of the vote for the Conservatives, which is interesting that is what we set the line at the beginning of the year, because that's where they were. Obviously, they ended up just under 13%. You took the over. I took the under there. Well done.
So it looks like you're leading by many. Anyway, that's
okay. You'll see. You actually do catch up. Provincial politics, we did a broader one. We did 76.5% for Kenny leadership review vote. You chose the under. I chose the over. He got 51.4, so it wasn't very close at all. We did 2.5 provincial elections in 2022. We both chose the under. There was no unexpected elections. We had 1.5 premiers that would resign or be defeated in 2022. You chose the under. I chose the over. And it was Jason Kenney and John Horgan.
Kenney.
Yeah.
I did Horgan for health reasons, of course. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Wow.
Then we moved on to federal politics. This is the one that very quickly you won on this one. Would Aaron O'Toole still be leader by the end of the year? I said he would, and you said he wouldn't. And of course, he was ousted in February, not too long afterwards. We did 40% Liberal polling average on your site, 33canada.com. You chose the under. I chose the over. I thought that at some point they might jump ahead above 40. And they never actually got above 35%. I was looking at your averages. We'll go to federal by-elections. We said 1.5 federal by-elections in 2022. You chose the over. I chose the under. We only had one, and it just happened, Mississauga Lakeshore. We had 0.5 quarters with the PPC raising more than $1 million. You were under. You weren't very impressed with their operation. I said over. They never raised more than $409,000 in a quarter. So well done for you. We had 0.5 federal elections in 2022. We both chose the under. Of course, there was no election. And then we had a section, which was a bonus little section, which we ended up choosing all hockey things. I had put the 9.5 margin for the goals between Canada and China at the Olympics. You chose the over because you were confident the NHLers were going to go. I hedged my bets. They only won by 5 goals.
They won by 5 goals against China?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. We had the Maple Leafs would make the second round of the playoffs. You said false. I said true. Of course, they lost 4-3 to Tampa Bay in the first round. And then we said which Canadian team makes it furthest in the playoffs. You chose the Calgary Flames. I chose the Edmonton Oilers. And the Oilers made it to the conference finals, lost 4-0.
There you go.
So the winner is... a tie. We tied at 14 each. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm the host, and I'm very gracious. As the tiebreaker, I won on the hockey questions 2-1, and I think that doesn't count. I think you won on the politics questions 13-12. So congratulations, Philippe. You were the winner.
Well, it's a shootout win, so it doesn't really matter. Now that the playoff is now. Today is the tiebreaker, my friend.
Yeah. Well, we just had penalties in the World Cup, so maybe that's how it works. Okay. So I think we've kind of explained how it works, but what we're doing is that we're setting a line that we think is a difficult one to choose, and then we have to predict what will be the outcome in 2023. Now, this is not saying this is what we want to happen or what we really think is going to happen, but we have to choose something. And sometimes we'll be a little contrarian just for fun. But that's it. We're going to go through federal politics, some of the provincial politics, and then in a year's time, we'll find out who ends up winning. Okay, so we'll start at the federal level.
Okay.
Philip, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go ahead.
Okay, so this is more of a true and false line. Will the Liberal NDP confidence and supply agreement remain in place between now and when we do this next time in December 2023?
All right, so a year is a long time. We have a budget. The thing is, the polls right now have not moved much, and if the Liberals were suddenly jumping at 39%, they could see when maybe we have an opportunity to face off with Poilievre with an advantage. I don't see that right now, and the NDP saying, "Oh, perhaps we'll pull our support because of the healthcare system." It seems like an empty threat because the NDP numbers are not that greater. So I say that the NDP is bluffing, and the entente will remain through the year. Yes, I say true. It will remain through the year. I'm
going to say I think you're right, but I'm going to say false with a bit of an asterisk. I think by the end of the year, they'll still be working together, but Singh will at some point make a statement that the agreement's broken and they're going to support the party on a case-by-case basis, and they end up doing that anyway until 2024, 2025.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go with that. Okay, what's yours?
Okay, so among the respectable pollsters that we have, will the Conservatives poll at above 40% this year?
It all depends on who you're calling respectable. I'm
Well,
not sure if I want to get in trouble here.
well, those that are listed and rated on my website, let's say.
All right, that's fair. Okay. I will say yes. I think so. I think it's happened. It might have already happened, or at least they're in the high 30s, I think, in some of the Main Street polling.
High 30s, but
Even
I
Abacus.
yeah, I haven't seen 40s.
I haven't seen 40s, yeah, but even Abacus, which has generally had pretty steady numbers, had them at 36. So I can imagine that they get one poll where they're at 41%, and everybody freaks out, and then a week later, there's polls out with them at 32.
All right. I say under. I don't think they will hit 40. It's really hard to hit 40 unless there's a scandal. And we know that very well could happen with this Liberal government. So I will say under on the 40% for the Conservative on a single poll.
Okay, all right. And we'll do something similar for my next line. So Liberal national support in the 338 Canada average. Okay. And once again, I have to stipulate that you can't fudge the numbers to win.
I promise.
I'm going to set the line at 35.5.
That they reach that point at some point during the year?
Yeah, which they didn't do last year or this current year.
35.5. Man, that's a low bar. But they didn't clear it this year. That's true. The economy could get better. The inflation could go down or not. 35.5. That's a good line, Eric. Because last year was 40.
Yeah.
The line went down considerably. 35.5 in my average. I will say over on this one.
Okay. I'm going to say under. I think that their ceiling has dropped as the government is going on in its time in office. So I think it'll be tough for them to average over 35.5. Okay.
The wear and tear of time at some point takes its toll. That's for sure. This morning we saw a new poll by the Angus Street Institute, and we see that the favorable numbers for Trudeau are awful, but Poilievre's numbers are even worse. So will we have a situation where people are tired of the government, but the alternative is not that much greater except for the base? It could be a scenario where we get into the lesser of evils, and that's not good for a democracy. But anyway,
yeah. And if you're at the lesser of two evils, you're probably not getting into the high 30s. But
that's true. What else did I? I didn't have anything else for the federal.
Okay, well then we'll do one more that I have.
Okay, go
Actually,
ahead.
I have two more.
Go ahead.
All right. 25% support for the Conservatives, again in your averages, in Quebec.
Oh. Oof. The Conservatives had 25%, just below 25% once in their new history. In 2006, they had 24.7%. But we're talking about polls here. Andrew Scheer did have some good polls in 2019 until the Bloc Québécois rose up. Well, until the TVA debate. 25% in the average, I'm going to say under. Pierre Poilievre is not popular in Quebec so far. It could change, but that to this point today is not very popular.
I think I'm going to agree, and I'll choose the under as well. I can imagine it happening. Let's say something happens during an election campaign where people kind of get unstuck, and maybe they have something that happens. But I do have trouble imagining them averaging in the high 20s at some point. Okay, and one last one, which I have to ask: over and under of elections in 2023.5.
I have to stipulate this for those who listened to this last year. I love federal elections. I'm on TV, I do radio, I do print, I do a lot of stuff. And it's good for me that there are elections. I would love to have elections. I don't think it's going to be in 2023. I would bet on 2024. So I would go on the under on this one.
I will also choose the under. I think everybody would use an extra year. So I think that will keep everybody in line.
By-election wins. Oh, yeah, I wanted to do that. By-election wins. Well, we have two by-elections. Of course, Winnipeg South, the sad death, the passing of Mr. Carr. And we have Calgary Heritage. The MP just resigned. So we have at least two.
There's going to be a third. There's Dave McKenzie in Oxford announced he's going to step down the end of January.
Oh, that's right. Oxford. Okay. So number of by-elections in 2023, 3.5.
I will take the over. I'm guessing that someone else will resign at some point. There's a few elections happening this year provincially, so that's always an opportunity either to run provincially or run for the leadership or something like that. So I'm going to guess that someone else resigns early in the year, and so we have at least 4.
I agree. I will also take the over. Last year, I got fooled. I thought Marc-Garneau was going to go. There were rumors that Marc-Garneau was going to be an ambassador or something. So I thought he was going to go. I think he's going to go this year. So, all right, I'll take also the over on this one.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to provincial politics. So we have 3 provincial elections that are scheduled for the year. Alberta is in the spring. Manitoba and Prince Edward Island are in the fall. There's always a possibility there could be another one, or one of them will go early. There's been some chatter that in PEI they could have an earlier election. But we'll start with Alberta since it's the first one on the docket. I started with federal, so why don't you start with Alberta? What do you got?
This is a very interesting election, as you know. This is going to be a rare two-way race, really a two-way race, where no other party seems to be able to win any seats. It's the NDP and the UCP. The polling that we had lately has the race much closer than we had during the Kenny days. And Miss Smith, of course, is not shy to go into controversy mode. So I have a very simple yet revealing line: the number of NDP seats. And I set the line at 43.5. It's very. I know it's a very simple. Basically, it's saying, is the NDP going to win? Because for a majority at the legislature, you need 44 seats. I set the bar at 43.5 for the NDP. What say you, Eric?
All right. So this is not a line. This is, will the NDP win the election?
Basically, yeah. Unless there's a third party in the next 5 months.
Yeah.
That changes things.
I will take the over. I think that the polls have been pretty bad for the United Conservatives. I think that during an election campaign, some of the weaknesses of Danielle Smith saying things that she ends up having to apologize, that's not going to go well over a 4-week campaign. And I think that some of the numbers we've seen, especially with the NDP in Calgary, the fact that they're doing pretty well there, it's starting to look, I think, pretty tough for the United Conservatives, even if you get with a tie or even a narrow UCP popular vote advantage. I think the NDP could end up eking out a very narrow majority. I think it's tough for them to get much higher than, say, 47 or something like that. Yeah. But I will take the over.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll disagree on this one. Basically, I agreed with your argument, with what you just said. It's just that the polls that we saw also has a lot of undecideds. And you have to believe that a fraction of those undecideds will side with Conservatives. It's really hard to bet against Conservatives in Alberta. It's true that Danielle Smith is a different animal, but I say under for the NDP at 43.5 seats.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. We have a pretty significant divergence. Now, here's one. I'm going to set the line for turnout in the Alberta election. All right. Now, Alberta has had in the past very low turnout, but in the last couple elections, it's been not too bad. They had 67.5% in 2019, and they've had higher turnout in some recent elections as well. But in the past, they were used to be sometimes in the 40s, in the 50s. But I'm asking this question because I think it's going to be a pretty spicy election. Right?
That's true.
Rachel Notley, Danielle Smith. So I'm going to put the line at slightly higher turnout than they had in 2019. So 68% turnout in the Alberta election.
68%. What was it last time?
67.5.
Wow. Well, it's 25 points higher than Ontario.
Yeah.
Wow. 68%. That is a high bar. I will take the over.
Do you think people are going to be enthused to vote in this election?
I think you have a very polarized election between two completely different visions. Also, the fact that Danielle Smith is very much flirting with separatism, and she gained some of her support recently in polls by completely obliterating the whip, the Wild Rose Independence Party. Living in Quebec, I know that this can really increase the turnout when you get into separation anxiety. It's a high bar, but I'll take the over. Yeah,
I have to take the over as well. I think it is going to be. I think it's probably going to be a heck of an election with people really tuning in and some high turnout. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Obviously,
and
we want
national consequences, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be just a provincial election that nobody's going to follow. It's going to be from coast to coast. We're going to follow this.
Yeah, it'll dominate national news as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you got another one for Alberta?
Popular vote for the NDP. I could have gone with the UCP, but let's stick with the NDP. The polls that we have showed between 45 and sometimes just over 50% for the NDP. But then again, many pollsters were wrong a little bit in 2019. Except for Janet Brown, they all overestimated the NDP. So I'm going to set a line intentionally a bit low, just to lure you to see where you go. I'll set the line. The popular vote for the NDP, I say 44%. And I know this is a bit low, considering the polls that we had here. But this is the line. What say you?
What did they get in 2015? They got 40,
They
42?
2015, they had 41.
Yeah, 41. Yeah, 2015, that's what I meant. Okay. Oh, boy. Okay, well, let me think about this. I think that it's going to be hard for any other parties to really get more than combined 5% of the vote, let's say. So there's 95% left on the table. So if you're getting 44, that's leaving 51 for the other party. So I think I'll take the over. I think they'll both end up somewhere around 46, 47.
Yeah, I tried to lure you there. I'm taking the over as well. It's I'd set the line too low. Okay, all right, but it's going to be I don't think the UCP is getting 50% of the vote. They had 55 last time. I mean, just on over 55. This is going to be you said the spicy election. I'm going to say nasty election, but bring it on. It's going to be fun. Okay.
All right, let's move. Let's do one for the Conservatives then. So here's my line: the amount of seats that the UCP will win in Edmonton, and by Edmonton, I'm just defining that as ridings that start with the name Edmonton. They currently have one. I'm going to set the line at 0.5.
So we don't count Saint Albert and
that's right.
Just the Edmontons. Okay. Yeah. And that seat that they did win in Edmonton in 2019, it was I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember it was close. They were almost shut out of Edmonton, and I'm gonna say 0. I'm gonna say under.
All right. Okay.
What do you think?
I'll just be different. I'll say they managed to hold on to one. Yeah. So I'll take the over on that one.
It's funny that you go with Edmonton because I went with Calgary. Again, I'm not taking the Airdrie and the other seats. I'm just taking the Calgarys. There are 26 seats that have Calgary in their name. In 2019, the UCP won 23 of 26. The NDP won the other 3. So how many seats for the NDP in Calgary? I'm setting the line at 11.5.
I will take the over.
Oh, right away, huh?
Yeah, because if they're first of all, I have to be consistent. If they're winning the election, they got to win probably 15, 20 seats in Calgary. So I'm going to take the over, and I think that they'll do it. I think that Danielle Smith has probably revved up the base outside of Edmonton and Calgary, and maybe in some of those ridings, UCP will do even better than they did last time. But I think that she's sacrificing a lot of that vote in Calgary. And I guess I'm not consistent if I say they're going to hold on to one seat in Edmonton. But I think that they are opening up an opportunity for the NDP to do quite well in Calgary. So I will take the over on that line.
Well, here's what we're going to do here because you're way too confident. Like the CAQ in Montreal bet last year, I'm going to move this line. 23. I said 11.5. Okay, I'll set 16.5.
Oh boy!
You're way too confident. I want something that tears you inside. So 16. You said between 15 and 20, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 16.5 I think is a pretty good line.
So looking at some of the swings we've had in the polls in Calgary, they sometimes end up winning 20, 21 seats with the swings. Now the swings not going to be uniform. They're not going to do as well in the outskirts as they are in the center of the city. I'm still going to take the over. I'm going to take the over. I think they'll end up 17, 18 of the Calgarys, and that's what gets them their majority government.
It would. I mean, with 18 seats in Calgary, and you add maybe the Toulette Bridge. You add Banff. That's just over 44 seats for the NDP. So I'm going to say the under. I don't think they'll do that well. I mean, if they win 15 seats at Calgary, that's pretty good, but it wouldn't be enough. So I'll take the under 16.5 seats in Calgary.
All right. Do you have another one for Alberta, or do you want to move on?
I'm done with Alberta.
Okay, let's move on to Manitoba. Now, this is also scheduled to be in October. The polls right now have been pretty bad for the PCs, and it looks like Wabkanu and the NDP is on track to win. So let me do a line here. I will do the amount of seats that the NDP will win in Manitoba. Now, in the last few elections where they formed government, they won 35, 36, 37 seats. And the number of seats hasn't changed in Manitoba. So I'm going to put the line for NDP seats at 32.
Ooh.
I guess I should do 31.5. Let's do 31.5.
31.5. The polls that we had, the thing is, Probe Research is the main poster in Manitoba. And I don't want to say anything bad about the fine people at Probe Research, but they were not that close last time around. The only other firm that has polled Manitoba lately is the Angus Reid Institute, and it has a near tie between the NDP and the PCs. Naturally, these polls are a bit old, from June, I see. 31.5 seats. Right now, in the projection that I just calculated earlier this month, it's 34, but with a range that goes all the way down to 29. With the Liberals maybe winning 2 or 3. That's a good line. And will it last through the campaign? That's the thing. Again, it's hard to bet against the PCs. But the numbers in Winnipeg are so overwhelming for the NDP, though. I will say the over. I will take over. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm betting 33 to 35 seats for the NDP. If it holds, of course, maybe we'll look like fools a year from now. But if it holds, I'd say, yeah, over.
Okay, that's interesting. If we think about the context, it'll come a few months after the election in Alberta. So that could be a boost to the NDP, or maybe if there is an NDP government in Alberta that is not popular by the fall, that could hurt the Manitoba NDP. So there's lots of different variables to think of there.
That's true.
I think you make a good point. We'll probably end up with a closer race than what some of those polls are showing, just because that's naturally what often happens in campaigns. But even in the past, when the PCs and the NDP were really close in the vote, the NDP still won really easily, just because of how much their support is in Winnipeg. But Wabkanu led them in the last campaign. They did okay compared to the one before, but still not very good. So I'm going to say that maybe his campaign prowess isn't enough, and I think they'll still win, but maybe they come up just short. So just to take a different tack, I'll take the under, which maybe they end up at 29, 30, 31 seats, something like that. But I'll take the under on 31.5 seats for the NDP.
I'll ask you this question because you know of all the elections in Canada, Eric. When was the last time Manitoba had a minority government?
They had a minority government.
It's been a while, right?
It was, I think, in 1988, 1990, around then.
Oh my God! Okay, yeah, way before I followed politics in Manitoba. Yeah. Okay, it's been a while.
Because at that point the Liberals really were very competitive, and it was a minority government at that stage. They had a series of elections. Can't remember exactly. It was in that 1988 to 1992 era that there was minority governments in Manitoba.
It takes 29 seats to have a majority, and so if the Liberals win 3 and the NDP are in the upper 20s, we could have a minority government. It would be interesting. Okay. Yeah. So the NDP has been polling. If you look at Probe Research, 44, 46, 45% their last polling. As I said, the Angus Reid, it's closer to 40%. For the NDP, and we know that things will change over the years. So I'm going to say popular vote for the NDP. I'm going to say 44%. Over or under? What do you say?
Okay, that's good. So let's imagine that the Liberals take 15, the Greens take 5, so that's 20, so there's 80. So if they're at 44, the PCs are at 36. Um, Oh, that's it's tough to imagine them getting the 45, 46%. I guess I'll have to be consistent, or maybe I could hedge my bets. I'll hedge my bets. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to hedge my bets so that I'll get at least one of these right, I think. So for the NDP, I'll take the over on 44%.
Yeah, me too. That's what I wanted. I mean, I figured that the PCs have been in power for quite a while now, the wear and tear, and at some point in a change election, usually the turnout goes up. So it could be a very good election for the NDP. So I'll take the over as well.
Okay. All right. Stu, just continue with the Manitoba. I just said 15% for the Liberals. If we set that as the line, what do you think?
Oof.
I should note they haven't had more than 15% since 1995.
Yeah, it's been a while. I was a teenager. They've been pulling at around that range. It's just that if the election gets closer between the main two parties, usually it siphons away votes from the smaller parties. We see that in Alberta right now. 15%, I will go with the under.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take the over because we saw in a few recent by-elections the Liberals were doing pretty well. And
that's true.
And it does seem to have come at least partially from the PCs. So let's say that the election is going badly for the PCs, and a lot of voters say they don't want to vote for the NDP, but they can't vote for the PCs. The Liberals could end up getting a chunk of that vote. It'll be tough for the Liberals, I guess, to get more than 15% and for the NDP to win, but I'm going to take the over on 15% for the Liberals.
Miss Stephenson is very not popular right now, according to the satisfaction rating polls that we've seen. She's at the bottom of the list of premiers. So perhaps we're watching the PCs, completely losing this election and having to rebuild over the next few years. They had a good run, but we'll see. That's a good point.
All right. Do you got another one for Manitoba? Or do you want to move to PEI?
No, I don't. Let's go with PEI.
Okay, so PEI. I think it's a sleeper election. I think it's going to end up being pretty interesting because you have the Greens, and I know it's just 150,000 or so people and 27 ridings, but I'm going to set the line on PC seats. Now they currently have 15. The polls have given them around 50%, so I'm going to put the line at 20 PC seats, or 19.5.
Right. The Greens had 9 seats. Is that correct?
I believe they're currently at 8.
8 seats.
Yeah.
And the Liberal have 6. So that's 29, right? Okay. Yeah, okay. 20 seats for or 19.5. The polls have been very good for the PIPCs. Then again, trying to think. I don't remember that the PCs had that great of a campaign last time around, and yet they still won. The Greens were doing really well. Remember that one poll that had the Greens ahead? That took a lot of attention. I remember it was like, wow. 20 seats is high, but at 50, if they get close to 50% of the vote, they're going to get that. I mean, even perhaps more. So I'm going to go with the over.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the over too, because we've seen in PI when a party is doing really well, they can win everything but 2 or 3 or 4 seats. So I think that the PCs currently are on track for that kind of thing. So I'll also take the over on PEI.
Well, I had the number of green seats in PEI. As you said, I thought they had 9, so they have 8 now. My line was at 4.5. Because again, I thought, the very few polls that we had, the Greens are doing okay, but there's no green wave either. And if the PCs are close to 50%, the Greens are going to suffer some losses. Is that a good line, 4.5? Do you find it difficult?
Well, I had 5.5. So
you had 5.5. Okay.
So let's do 4.5. I think that this could be an interesting election. We just had news that the leader of the PI Liberals will be running in the Green leaders riding. So if the Greens do well, that probably means the Liberals are not going to do that well because they're not even get their leader elected. So if we have a scenario where the PCs are at 20, 21, 22 seats, and the Greens, they'd have to get 5. That would be tough.
Liberals are not doing well either, though.
Yeah, I could see one of them falling out, right? But there'll be, there's still the traditional voters that'll still vote for the
That's
same
true.
parties they vote every time. Uh, I think I'm going to take the over. I think Peter Bevan Baker has been pretty popular. He polls pretty well on the preferred premier, and there'll be a debate, and he'll do well enough there. And maybe the Liberals drop to a seat, but I'll take the over. But it's going to be a narrow over. It'll be like 5 seats.
Yeah, me too. Actually, if the line was 5.5, I'm not sure what I would pick, but I would pick the over on this. I think the Greens are going to be the official opposition again, and perhaps the Liberals take a stumble like in other provinces in the country. Man, that provincial Liberal brand is taking a beating right now. Huh? Oh
Yeah,
boy.
yeah. By the end of the year, it's in New Brunswick they might win the next election. They're doing well
That's
there.
true.
But yeah,
That's true.
outside of Atlantic Canada, it's tough. Okay, so unless you have another one for PI, we can move to just the grab bag of anything.
Go ahead with the grab bag.
Okay.
Looking.
This one, I'm not gonna use this one in case you do something like that because I think you might. How about this? So there was a by-election that just took place in Mississauga Lakeshore. There were 40 candidates. So I'm going to put
Yes,
the
the
line
rhinos. Yeah.
at 40. If there is a by-election, and there will be by-elections in 2023, the by-election with the most candidates and I'm going to set the line at 40.
The rhinos were active. I remember many people here didn't know it was the Rhino Party doing this, and there's some Quebecers. Hey, there are a lot of francophones in Mississauga Lakeshore. It's like, yeah, no, they're out of towners.
Yeah.
I think this is a one-time thing. I think they made their point. I mean, the rhinos could very well prove me wrong, but I'm gonna definitely say the under because this is. You still have to get the signatures. You just, you still have to do some work. You can't just say, I'm going to run. So I'm going to say under.
I'm going to take the over just because I think they're going to try it again. And now they have a line. They got to do better than 40. So they're going to try to do better than 40. So I'll take the over. I'll say there'll be another by-election with an absurdly long ballot, which means we have to wait a very long time for the results to come in.
That was so slow, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember you were doing your live hit, and I kind of felt bad after an hour and a half of barely a few boxes opened. Yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down to hockey picks. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you have any other politics?
I do have a couple.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. Here, then this is one that you'll like. So if there is now this will only be if the Quebec Liberal leadership race gets started.
Right.
But if it does get started, by the end of the year, how many candidates that we have declared? I'm going to put the line at 3.5.
If it gets started, okay. Nobody's running to nobody's rushing to the doors to get to the Liberal leadership. It's not a very solid job right now. It could be in the future, but right now, nobody wants that job. 3.5. So you think it's going to be 4 or more by the end of the year? I'm taking the under, my friend. I'm taking the under. That nobody wants that job. I could be right. It's still the leader of the opposition against François Legault. So you still have a decent caucus of 20 seats if you count the one independent. I'm gonna say under.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it is looking like a tough job, but you do get a bonus if you're a sitting MNA, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I set the line there because when Criard won, there were 3 candidates.
That's right.
When Anglade won, there was just 1. By the end of it, there was 2 at some point. But I'm going to say that you're going to get a bunch of people. Now I'm just wildly speculating. You'll get a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork. You'll have Denis Coderre, Joël Lightbound.
Oh.
You'll have Tanguay and Fortin, and you're going to have this list of 5-6 people. And it's going to be a bit of a mess. So I'll take the over on 3.5 candidates for the Quebec Liberal leadership.
You know what, my friend? If you are right on this one, you're gonna look like a genius a year from now.
Yeah.
I look at my list. I skipped one, but it was about Quebec. There will be a by-election in the riding of Saint-Henri Sainte-Anne to replace Dominique Anglade. This has traditionally been, as you know, a safe Liberal seat, but it hasn't been that safe in the last election. Quebec Solidaire is really pushing to get that seat. It would be their 12 seats. So the question is very simple. It's a yes or no. Do the Liberals keep Saint-Henri Sainte-Anne in the by-election that will be in the spring? Yes or no? It's hard to bet against the Liberals, but the Saint-Henri is gentrifying. At the municipal level, it's been Valérie Plante wall to wall. So we know that they have this Projet Montréal, the municipal party, has a lot of foot soldiers with Québec Solidaire. Québec Solidaire is going to push hard to get that 12th seat. My question: do you think they're going to get it?
Considering how bad the Liberal campaign was, and they still managed to win that riding by, what was it, 8 points?
Yeah.
Now, she was the leader, so that has a bonus. Maybe the Liberals find a good candidate to run there.
70% francophone.
Yeah, it's tough. I really think that the Quebec Solidaire could easily win that by finding a good candidate, and everybody says, all right, this party's in a much better position than the Liberals.
I can tell you that Quebec Solidaire will run the same candidate as last election. Right now I forget his name, but he's a young candidate.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the incumbent, and I'm going to say that the Liberals managed to win this, but not by a lot, and it still it doesn't make anybody feel better in the Liberal Party that they end up winning this.
You know what? It's never not been Liberal since that seat existed. I think 80 years. So it's really hard to bet against the Liberals. Just for kicks, just to be different, I'm going to say that Quebec Solidaire wins it. It sends tremors in the Liberal Party headquarters because the Liberals traditionally they were not afraid of Quebec Solidaire. Quebec Solidaire was taking votes and seats from the Parti Québécois, but in this election, for the first time, they started taking Liberal seats like Verdun. I mean, the people of Nuns Island in Montreal, they have a Quebec Solidaire MNA.
They're winning the nuns over. I mean,
you go. So yeah, I'm gonna say that not Quebec Solidaire wins. I'm gonna say that the Liberals lose, because the question is whether the Liberals will keep it, and I say no, they won't.
Okay, all right. I still do have a couple of political ones, so why don't we do that?
Go ahead.
Here's one. It was an interesting one to do last year, so I'll do it again. The number of premiers who will be defeated and or resign by the end of the year, and I'm going to set the line at 2.5.
2.5. Okay, so let's say I believe the NDP in Manitoba is going to win. It's going to be a change election. That's one. I said that the NDP in Alberta was not going to win. And I think Mr. King is okay in PEI. To be consistent, I have to take the under. 2.5. So you think there could be 3? Oh, resign. Sorry. Somebody going to resign. Mr. Ibi, Mo is sticking around. Ford is sticking around. Higgs. It's not going too well for Higgs, but he's an old man, but he's not going anywhere. He's got a majority. Huh. Yeah, it's a better line than I thought. We're not counting the territories, right?
No.
Okay.
Provincial premiers.
Okay. And Newfoundland. Yes. I'm gonna say under, but it's a very good line. It's hard. I'm gonna say under.
I'm going to take the over, just like I did last time, because I think that Stephenson and Smith will end up being defeated, so they go down.
That's 2.
And then for third, there's always just the chance that someone has to resign for whatever reason. But I think that the third could be Blaine Higgs. As you mentioned, he's, I believe, 68 or 69. And his numbers are very, very poor. Yeah. And so I can imagine that by the end of the year, the party is starting to worry about the 2024 election and think that he has to get out. So I'm going to choose the over with those 3 being the 3. And, maybe someone else resigns because of a social media post or something like that. Okay, so how about this last one for... actually, if you got one that's not political, why don't we do that one? And then I'll finish with my last political one.
Well, it was about hockey. Will the Montreal Canadiens win this? No, that's not true. Are the Leafs going to make it to the second round? It's the same line as last year because it's funny. I'm sorry, Leafs fan. I know there are many Leafs fans listening to this. It's just I respect you. It's just funny when your team loses when it's supposed to win. Like against the Habs, I still can't get over the Habs winning against the Leafs 2 years ago. But are the Leafs going to the second round, Eric?
So you're trying to alienate my Toronto listeners. I will take their side, even if it pains me, and say that this team is going all the way.
All the way? You're insane. It's
Yeah.
it's not happening.
This is the year that the Leafs win.
They are really good. I mean, I watch a lot of the highlights and I follow the stats. Of course, the Leafs are really good. It's just something happens during the playoffs to that team. But the Raptors did it a few years ago, so perhaps the Leafs would break out of their funk. I'm gonna say no because it's fun that way, and they can make fun of me next year. But I say the Leafs bow out in the first round.
Okay. All right. How about this? We'll finish on this one.
Right.
So it's a true and false one. So by the time we do this next, right, in December 2023, will both Donald Trump and Joe Biden be active candidates for president? And by that I mean they either aren't in jail or have said that they're not running. So they're still both potentially, they haven't ruled it out, they're still potentially going to be facing off in 2024.
And the primaries officially begin in January. Am I correct about that?
Very end of January, the first beginning of February, the Iowa caucuses.
There's no way that Trump will ever say he's not running because then he can't, make money. He can't raise money off his followers.
Can't sell his NFTs. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, the laser eyes. So I think Trump's still going to say that, and he's not going to be in jail because that never works. I know Sarkozy in France would go to jail, but in the United States, I don't see it. And Mr. Biden, he sounds a little senile. He's clearly tired, but keeps winning. He did okay in the midterms. So both? You say both?
Both, yeah. That it's still, when we next chat, it's still a possibility that they'll run against each other.
Oh my God. I say true. I say yes.
You
want to say
so
yes?
Too.
Yeah.
I think so too. I do think it's very possible, though, that Biden very early in the year will say that he's not going to run again. He signaled that he'll decide in early next year. I think they'll still probably both be there, but you took that they will, so I'm going to take that they won't. That Biden will make himself a lame duck sometime next year.
It would make incredible primaries because there would be many very quality candidates for the Democratic leadership. It would be very interesting to see what would happen. But when you keep winning, it's really hard for your party to get rid of you when you keep winning. So.
Yeah. Well, that's your best bet against being driven out of office, as we saw earlier this year from a number of leaders who weren't able to win their elections in Quebec and in Ontario. All right, so who do you think's going to get it this year? Who are you feeling good about? You or me?
Well, I know that you've been following those elections outside of Quebec for a longer time than me. And so I think you have more of a base knowledge and perhaps more intuition. So I would bet on you, but I would have betted on you last year and I pulled off a tie. So that's not too bad.
Yeah, I don't want to make, but I did beat you in the Quebec questions last year. So.
That's true. I screwed up the Parti Québécois cost me. That's what happened. And also the during the campaign, I must say this, during the campaign, the CAQ was projected to win more than 3-4 seats in Montreal at some point, but they did go down in the last week. There are many comments about immigration that did not help, and we think that they lost a few votes, especially in Anjou and Laval in the eastern end. My projections were correct. The politicians did screw up. So
all right. Over under on number of elections that your projections you're happy with next year, 2.5. But anyway, we'll stop there. But we'll have a lot of chance to chat about it next year. There'll be those 3 provincial elections. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a federal election or a
Perhaps.
BC election or another election to chat about. So I'm looking forward to doing the over and under next year. And I wish you good luck in 2023, both in your predictions and in your personal life, Philippe. I hope you have a great 2023.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. I very much appreciate that. Same to you. Looking forward to talk to you next time.
And that'll be it for the Writ podcast and for the Writ YouTube channel for 2022. Thanks so much for subscribing to this channel, watching the videos, joining me in the live streams that I did this past year. They were a lot of fun, and I'm going to do them again in 2023. So thanks so much for your support. You can visit thewrit.ca to see all the latest from me and to subscribe. That is the best way to support me. But if you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel, I really appreciate that too. So happy holidays and have a great 2023.